The ocean has always been a place of mystery, but it's also the setting for some of the most powerful weapons on Earth. Beneath the waves, hidden from sight, the United States Navy operates machines that are as massive as they are silent: nuclear submarines. In 2024, the spotlight is on one of America's most advanced underwater giants, a submarine designed not just for stealth, but for sheer destructive capability. It's the kind of vessel that can quietly slip across oceans, remain hidden for months at a time, and carry enough firepower to alter the balance of power in an instant. And the most remarkable part? To the average person walking along a beach or watching waves crash against the shore, you'd never even know one was nearby. That's the point. When we talk about deadly submarines, we're not just throwing around dramatic words. The modern U.S. ballistic missile submarine, the type that's been making headlines in 2024, is a floating fortress of technology. Unlike the attack subs that hunt enemy ships or protect carriers, this class has one main job: deterrence. Its mission isn't to start a fight, but to make sure no one dares to begin one in the first place. By staying hidden, it keeps rivals guessing. By being nearly impossible to track, it ensures that America's nuclear arsenal is always ready, even if other defenses are destroyed. That's what makes it so powerful. To really understand what makes this submarine stand out in 2024, we have to step back for a second. For decades, the United States has built submarines that push the limits of engineering. These boats are massive, longer than a football field, but they move underwater with the quiet grace of a shadow. Engineers spend years making sure every propeller blade, every pipe, and even the way water flows along the hull is designed to reduce noise. Why? Because in the underwater world, silence is survival. The quieter the submarine, the harder it is for enemies to find. And if they can't find it, they can't stop it. But quiet doesn't mean weak. Far from it. Inside these submarines are ballistic missiles, each one capable of carrying multiple nuclear warheads. We're talking about weapons that can travel thousands of miles, strike with pinpoint accuracy, and unleash devastation on a scale that's almost hard to imagine. It's not something the Navy likes to boast about after all. The entire idea is to prevent those weapons from ever being used. But the sheer destructive potential is what gives the submarine its role in global strategy. In 2024, the Navy's nuclear submarine fleet is as important as ever. With rising tensions around the world, from disputes in the Pacific to friction with rival powers in Europe and beyond, the presence of these submarines sends a quiet but unmistakable message: the U.S. is ready. You won't see these vessels cruising around with flags flying or weapons out on display. They're not like aircraft carriers, projecting strength for the cameras. Instead, they slip out of port in silence, vanish beneath the waves, and disappear into the deep. Only a small handful of sailors, and the satellites tracking their movement back home, know exactly where they are. That's what makes them so fascinating and so terrifying. You can't see them, you can't hear them, and you can't predict when they'll surface. Yet at any moment, one could be lurking just miles offshore, completely undetected. For America's adversaries, that uncertainty is the ultimate deterrent. Life aboard one of these submarines is nothing like what most people imagine. When you think submarine, maybe you picture cramped bunks, blinking control panels, and sailors moving through tight hallways, and in a lot of ways, that's accurate. But on a modern U.S. nuclear sub, the scale of the technology and the intensity of the mission make it feel like a world of its own, tucked away beneath the ocean's surface. These subs aren't just war machines. They're floating cities, designed to sustain crews for months at a time without surfacing. Think about that for a second. While we complain if the Wi-Fi drops for 5 minutes, these sailors live cut off from the outside world for weeks, even months, without sunlight, fresh air, or contact with family. Their home is a steel tube, hundreds of feet long, sealed against the crushing pressure of the deep. Every square inch of space has a purpose, every system has redundancy, and every sailor has a role to play. The heart of the submarine is its nuclear reactor, a compact but incredibly powerful machine that provides all the energy the vessel needs. Unlike diesel-electric subs, which need to surface or use a snorkel to recharge batteries, nuclear submarines can stay submerged indefinitely. The only real limiting factor is the crew's endurance and how much food they can carry. That's why you'll sometimes hear people say, these subs could theoretically stay underwater for years. In reality, it's the humans, not the machine, who eventually need a break. Food becomes a surprisingly big deal on board. With no stops at grocery stores, everything has to be carefully planned and stored before the submarine ever leaves port. Early in the deployment, sailors might enjoy fresh fruit, vegetables, or even ice cream. But as the weeks drag on, those luxuries run out. Meals become simpler, built from canned goods, frozen supplies, and creative use of what's available. A good cook on a submarine is worth his weight in gold because morale often rides on what's served at mealtime. In fact, many submariners will tell you the galley, the kitchen, is one of the most important parts of the whole boat. Then there's the crew dynamic. Imagine living and working in the same small space with about 150 other people, 24 hours a day, with no way to step outside. Privacy is practically non-existent. Sleep comes in short shifts. Bunks are stacked 3 high, And some sailors even practice what's known as hot racking, where one person sleeps in a bunk while another is on duty, then they swap. You have to get used to the constant hum of machinery, the recycled air, and the knowledge that the only thing separating you from the crushing ocean is a few inches of steel. But it's not all monotony. Every crew member knows they're part of something vital. Submariners often describe a deep sense of pride in their work because they're trusted with one of the most powerful weapons on the planet. Their job isn't glamorous. There are no cheering crowds, no big parades when they leave port. Their mission is quiet, invisible, and secret. Yet every sailor knows that their presence beneath the waves plays a direct role in keeping global conflict at bay. And make no mistake, the environment is as unforgiving as the mission is important. The ocean is hostile, temperatures can fluctuate, water pressure is immense, and even the smallest mechanical failure can escalate into a life-threatening situation. That's why training is relentless. Before stepping foot on one of these submarines, every sailor is drilled on emergency protocols, from fighting fires in tight quarters to sealing off compartments in case of flooding. Mistakes aren't an option when the nearest help might be thousands of miles away. All of this combines to create an atmosphere that outsiders often find hard to imagine. It's part science fiction, part endurance test, and part military precision. For the sailors aboard, though, it's simply daily life. They wake up, they run drills, they monitor systems, and they keep the submarine running smoothly, day in and day out, in total secrecy. While the world above goes on wars, politics, families, and ordinary life, the crew lives in a different reality, one where silence and patience are the most powerful weapons they carry. The deeper you go into the world of submarines, the more you realize just how unforgiving it is. Out there, hundreds of feet below the surface, there's no margin for error. That's why the crew spends endless hours drilling for emergencies. Because when something goes wrong underwater, there's no fire truck coming, no quick escape, and no backup plan. You and your shipmates are the only line of defense. Every sailor knows that reality, and it shapes the way they approach their duties. Take fire, for example. On land, flames are dangerous enough, but on a submarine, it's a nightmare scenario. The entire environment is pressurized, oxygen is limited, and electrical systems are running everywhere. One spark can spread faster than you'd ever expect. That's why every sailor trains like a firefighter. They suit up in heavy protective gear, grab hoses, and learn to tackle flames in claustrophobic spaces filled with smoke. These aren't just staged classroom lessons, they're grueling simulations designed to replicate the panic and pressure of a real emergency. By the time they're done, they don't just know how to fight a fire, they know how to keep their nerves steady when it counts. Another major threat is flooding. If water starts pouring into a submarine, it's not just about keeping your feet dry. It can throw off balance, short out systems, and put the entire crew at risk. That's why they spend hours in damage control simulators, working in dark compartments, while icy seawater blasts in through mock cracks and pipes. Their job is to stop it fast. They practice plugging holes, sealing off sections, and working together in pitch-black chaos. It's messy, exhausting, and sometimes downright miserable, but it's the kind of training that sticks. Every sailor knows that if the day ever comes when it happens for real, those drills could mean the difference between survival and disaster. And then there's the escape training, one of the most nerve-wracking parts of submarine school. Sailors climb into towering vertical tanks filled with water, mimicking the feeling of escaping from a pressurized submarine. They learn how to rise to the surface without panicking, how to control their breathing, and how to trust the equipment that's keeping them alive. For many, it's one of the toughest tests they'll face, because it forces them to confront both the physical challenge and the mental stress of being trapped underwater. But once they've done it, they carry that confidence with them forever. It's this kind of relentless preparation that separates a submarine crew from any other team in the military. These sailors aren't just operators of a machine. They're a tight-knit group of people who know that every single life on board depends on everyone else doing their job perfectly. There's no room for egos or weak links. Out at sea, they operate like one heartbeat, and that unity is what makes them so effective. When you talk about what these submarines are really built for, it all comes down to missions. And those missions, they're nothing short of wild. On the surface, it might look like the submarine is just drifting through the ocean, but behind that quiet exterior is a powerhouse built to handle just about any task the Navy throws at it. First up, stealth patrols. These are the bread and butter of any nuclear submarine. Imagine this, the crew sets out on deployment, and nobody outside that boat knows exactly where they are. Not even most people back home in the Navy. That's how secretive it gets. For weeks at a time, they vanish beneath the waves, gliding through international waters like ghosts. Enemy ships and submarines have no idea they're being tracked. Satellites can't see them. Even advanced sonar arrays struggle to pick up their presence. The submarine becomes a phantom, always listening, always watching, always gathering intelligence. But it's not just about spying. These subs can deliver serious firepower at a moment's notice. Picture dozens of vertical launch tubes packed with Tomahawk cruise missiles, each capable of striking targets hundreds of miles inland with pinpoint accuracy. A submarine could be sitting in the middle of the ocean, totally undetected, and then boom launch a salvo that changes the course of a battle. That kind of power makes any adversary think twice before making the first move. And let's not forget about anti-submarine warfare. It sounds like something straight out of a video game, but it's deadly serious. Nuclear subs often play a cat-and-mouse game with enemy boats, listening for the faintest acoustic signature, the tiny sound of a propeller blade or a shift in ballast. Once they've got a lock, they can maneuver silently into position and unleash heavyweight torpedoes that are almost impossible to evade. For the crew, it's both thrilling and terrifying, knowing that they might be in someone else's crosshairs at the same time. Another mission that doesn't get talked about enough is Special Operations Support. These submarines can carry Navy SEAL teams and deliver them undetected right onto hostile shores. Hidden compartments and lockout chambers let divers slip into the water without anyone knowing. It's like something out of a spy movie, but it's happening in real life, and it's been a game changer in conflicts around the world. But what really sets the 2024 generation of U.S. nuclear submarines apart is the technology that drives them. We're talking about nuclear reactors so advanced that they can power the boat for decades without ever needing a refuel. Sonar systems so sensitive they can pick out the sound of a ship's engine from hundreds of miles away. And navigation computers that can calculate precise movements even when the submarine hasn't seen the surface in months. This isn't just a step forward, it's like jumping into the future. At the heart of it all, though, is the crew. The technology might be cutting edge, but it's the sailors who make it all work. Every mission, every system, every decision comes down to their skill and focus. They're the ones turning a steel tube into one of the deadliest, most effective weapons platforms in the world. And in 2024, as the geopolitical landscape gets more unpredictable by the day, having a submarine like this ready for action isn't just impressive, it's essential. Now here's the thing, a submarine like this doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's not just some high-tech toy the Navy built to show off. Every piece of it, the firepower, the stealth, the missions, ties directly into what's happening in the world right now. And let's be honest, 2024 isn't exactly a calm year on the global stage. Tensions are high, rival powers are flexing, and the oceans have basically become the world's biggest chessboard. Think about it. Russia still runs some of the largest submarine fleets in the world, including boats designed to stock carriers and even carry nuclear weapons. China, on the other hand, has been pouring billions into expanding its navy, pumping out submarines and warships at a pace that's left analysts shaking their heads. Both of these countries know that control of the seas is a ticket to influence, and neither one is shy about making moves in contested waters. So when the U.S. rolls out its deadliest new sub, it's sending a very clear message: we're ready to play, and we've brought the biggest stick to the table. It's not just about direct conflict, though. Submarines also serve as a silent deterrent. The simple knowledge that an American nuclear submarine could be lurking off any coast, armed with torpedoes and missiles, changes the way other nations act. It forces military planners to think twice, because the cost of making the wrong move could be catastrophic. In a way, these subs are less about firing weapons and more about preventing anyone else from firing the first shot. Of course, deterrence only works if your rivals believe the sub can actually deliver. That's where the constant upgrades come in. We're talking next-gen sensors, faster data sharing with the rest of the fleet, improved quieting technology, all the stuff that makes sure these submarines stay a step ahead. Because here's the truth, it's an arms race under the ocean, one that most people never see. While headlines focus on aircraft carriers and fighter jets, navies are quietly trying to outbuild and outhide each other below the waves. And the U.S. is determined not to lose that edge. But here's what really makes 2024 different. For the first time in decades, we're not just talking about traditional state rivals. There's also the growing risk of cyber attacks, rogue states, and even non-state actors who could throw global security into chaos. A nuclear submarine is one of the few platforms that can adapt to all of that. It can sit quietly offshore and monitor activity. It can strike if needed. It can insert special forces for a surgical mission. It can basically pivot to whatever the situation demands. And that kind of flexibility is priceless. Now, some people might say, but isn't all this overkill? Do we really need subs this advanced? And honestly, that's a fair question. These boats cost billions of dollars each, and they're some of the most complex machines humans have ever built. But here's the thing. The ocean covers 70% of the planet. Whoever controls the oceans controls trade routes, global communication cables, and strategic choke points. Without submarines, you're fighting with one hand tied behind your back. With them, you've got an invisible force multiplier that can tip the scales in almost any conflict. And let's not forget, America's rivals aren't slowing down. Russia's deploying new classes of attack submarines with advanced weapons. China's fielding nuclear-powered ballistic missile subs to extend its global reach. If the US didn't answer with something even more capable, it'd be falling behind. And in this game, falling behind isn't an option. So when you hear that the deadliest US nuclear submarine is ready for action in 2024, it's not just a headline. It's a statement, a signal to allies that America's still got their back, a warning to adversaries that poking the bear might not end well, and a reminder that the ocean might look calm from the beach, but beneath those waves, a whole other world of power plays is unfolding, and the US has just put its biggest piece on the board. When you think about what makes a submarine so deadly, it's not just the fact that it's armed to the teeth with some of the world's most powerful missiles. It's the element of mystery, the fact that you don't know where it is until it decides to let you know. For decades, the U.S. Navy has leaned on this strategic advantage, knowing that the fear of an invisible hunter can be just as powerful as the weapons it carries. A single submarine, especially one of this scale and sophistication, has the ability to change the balance of power in a region without firing a single shot. Just the rumor that it might be lurking nearby can cause adversaries to hesitate, to rethink their strategies, and that kind of psychological leverage is priceless. But as advanced as the technology is, and as much money as the government pours into these submarines, there's another part of the story that often gets overlooked: the sailors. A submarine is nothing more than a floating piece of metal without the people who operate it. Every button pressed, every course change, every sonar ping interpreted, it all comes down to human beings working together in one of the most demanding environments on Earth. These sailors spend months at sea, away from family and the outside world, crammed into tight spaces with little privacy. Yet they do it because they understand the responsibility they've been given. They know that their job isn't just about running a submarine. It's about keeping their country safe, sometimes in ways the public never sees or even knows about. The training pipeline for submarine crews is brutal by design. It has to be. You can't have someone panicking when the sub dives to depths where sunlight doesn't reach. You can't have hesitation when alarms go off and lives are on the line. That's why sailors go through endless drills, firefighting in narrow hallways, repairing simulated hull breaches, even practicing escapes from a pressurized compartment. It's not about making them paranoid, it's about making their responses second nature. By the time they set foot on the real submarine, their instincts are honed, their reactions automatic, and their ability to work under pressure unshakable. For the Navy, this human element is what transforms advanced machinery into a living, breathing weapon of war. The most high-tech submarine in the world would be useless if its crew wasn't ready to handle the chaos of combat or the unexpected emergencies that life under the ocean can throw at them. And when you combine the two, the technology and the people, you get something that isn't just formidable, it's unstoppable. This is what sets the U.S., the submarine force, apart from any other. Not only do they have the most advanced hardware, but they also have the men and women trained to push it to its absolute limits. At the end of the day, when you look at this submarine, the newest, deadliest beast in the U.S. Navy's arsenal, you realize it's not just a war machine, it's a statement, a message to the rest of the world that America is ready, watching, and more than capable of defending its interests. And while the technology is jaw-dropping, the missiles that can hit halfway across the globe, the stealth that lets it slip through contested waters like a ghost, the reactor that can keep it moving without refueling for decades, the bigger story is what it represents. It's a floating guarantee, a promise that no matter how unpredictable the world becomes, the Navy is prepared to answer. Think about the timing too. In 2024, tensions aren't exactly low. Rival nations are testing boundaries. New technologies are emerging that challenge old doctrines, and the oceans themselves are turning into arenas of competition. So when the Navy rolls out a new nuclear submarine, it's not just another addition to the fleet, it's a signal. A signal to allies that the U.S. still has their back, and a signal to adversaries that trying anything reckless might not be the smartest move. In an era where even whispers of conflict can ripple across the globe, having a submarine like this quietly patrolling the depths is about as reassuring as it gets. Of course, with power like this comes responsibility. It's easy to get caught up in the awe of such a machine, to treat it like a weapon first and a tool of diplomacy second. But the truth is, submarines like this one have prevented more wars than they've fought. Deterrence may not make the headlines, but it's the silent strength that keeps the peace. Knowing a submarine is out there, knowing it can strike without warning, often stops conflicts before they start. It's not about pulling the trigger, it's about making sure no one dares to force the situation in the first place. And while it's tempting to view the submarine as some kind of futuristic leviathan, the reality is much more grounded. It's still steel and circuits. It's still manned by sailors who drink coffee to stay awake during long shifts, who miss birthdays and anniversaries, who carry the weight of enormous responsibility while the rest of us sleep peacefully. The Deadliest Submarine might sound like a headline ripped from a movie, but it's real. It's here. And it's crewed by people who have dedicated their lives to mastering one of the hardest jobs in the military. So, is the U.S. Deadliest 2024 nuclear submarine ready for action? Absolutely. But more importantly, it's ready for something bigger. It's ready to make sure that action never has to come. It's a paradox, really. The stronger and deadlier these submarines become, the less likely it is that they'll ever have to be used in combat. They exist in that strange balance, where the threat of their presence alone does the work. Silent, unseen, unstoppable. That's the power of the submarine force. And in 2024, the United States just raised the bar higher than ever before.